Welcome back, Exiles. This is the final version of my Exsanguinate Mines Elementalist build guide, now that I have felt done with it for a week. As always, the video uses YouTube chapters so you can skip or rewatch the parts that interest you. And by the way, since you're clicking 1,000 times per minute in PoE, you could spare a click on the subscribe button. I don't like to ask for it or to hear it on other videos, but these reminders do work. And it's quite crucial that I reach 1,000 subscribers to unlock some interesting features as a YouTube creator. Exsanguinate is a skill that fires up to 11 tendrils and each can chain. Using chain support of a new infamous mod on gloves, as we throw 5 mines each cast, we theoretically reach up to 155 enemies per cast. The mines auto-target, so we do not need to aim precisely at all. Throw them near you to defend yourself in all directions, or far from you to off-screen preventively. Since we convert the physical damage to cold with freeze and chill, which is an often underestimated layer of defense. To boost damage on huge bosses like Pinnacle, T17 or Maven Invitations, we can swap to Reap. By default, it deals less damage than Exsanguinate, but by generating blood charges, it will reach a much higher damage. The mines do not generate the charges, so we have to use a Val Rip gem in our Arcanist brand setup. When Val Rip is ready, we can press that button to get all blood charges with a temporarily boosted maximum, and the rest of the time, the brand casts no more Rip for us to upkeep the charges. This brand will also cast Assassin's Mark for us, and we can also use Bear Trap to further boost damage and slow down the target, but now that I have so much damage, I don't really bother with that one. So on the pro side, the build has a huge clear, a screen wide coverage and off screens. It doesn't have a very high skill cap thanks to the mine's auto-targeting, we don't need to aim precisely like on other builds. Chilling reduces the speed of enemies so it's easier to dodge their attacks. The build is leaguestarter friendly and scales well with investment. I am not a SSF player, but I've been asked this a couple times, and I do think the build is SSF friendly. Cream Sorrow gloves are easy to find. Heatshiver is a bit rarer, but I think it's still possible to find it. And Circle of Guilt is pretty easy to farm as well. Some cons are that the build is kinda complex. It's mines on top of Fizza's elemental scaling and golems. We are socket starved due to the golems, which can be annoying when you switch gear items. And it's not as tanky as other builds. Mines do take a lot of passive points, but it is possible to lose some DPS to get tankier if that's what you want. So why would one choose Elementalist instead of the usual Trickster for mines? Exsanguinate mines require some life regen to sustain the cost. Tricksters will like to run a Kikazaro ring, but we do not need that, thanks to the stone golem. I would say Elementalist is a better scaling at higher investment levels, in both damage and tankiness. But it's easier to cap spell suppression as Trickster, and I think it can become a faster mapper due to being able to stack more frenzy charges, as well as the action speed node. So if you're looking to farm strats where you just chain less juicy maps one after the other, Trickster might be better. So for leveling, you can technically swap to Exsanguinate Mines at level 38-ish, but the brand playstyle is more efficient to rush through the campaign because we don't need to full clear. Exsanguinate shines when you get a 5 link to get all the mine supports plus chain. So I recommend following Havok speedrunning build, which uses Rolling Magma to level 28 and then uses Armageddon's brand and cremation for the rest of the campaign. After your first lap, grab the Golem's Ascendancy node and run Stone, Flame, Lightning and Chaos. When we respect to mines, we replace from Lightning Golem to Ice for crit chance, because attack and cast speed do not work on mine throwing. So for the gear, early on you want to grab Cream Sorrow gloves for 100% physical damage as cold conversion. Later on we will replace them with rare gloves with a new infamous mod skills used by your traps and mines chain 2 additional times, which means we do not need chain support anymore, and that makes swapping Exsanguinate and Rip way easier since Rip doesn't chain. And buy a pair which has an open prefix to craft the physical damage conversion. And then you will have to craft the Eater of World Implicit to convert more. I actually do not have 100% conversion, more like 85 in total with the Cold Mastery. So it's better if you can upgrade the Eater of Worlds Implicit, but that's quite pricey. And in the end it's just a few percent of damage. And then I have chance to unnerve enemies on hit. After Cream Sorrow you want to grab at least a 5 link as soon as possible. And a Heatshiver hood. This gives us 40% of cold damage as extra fire, thanks to the Shape of Winter Ascendancies that boost up to 40% our chill effect. And when we freeze, we gain an extra 30% of cold damage as extra fire. Circle of Guilt is also a very nice ring to grab. Alternatively, you can grab a Taming. It will be similar DPS, a bit lower, but it does have the plus side of having a lot of all elemental resistance. And you'll want to grab a Wand and Shield with plus physical spell skill. You get an open suffix on your weapon to craft Mind Throwing Speed. And on your Spirit, you can also have an open suffix for spell suppression. On your amulet, you can also find +1 skill and an open suffix for Mind Throwing Speed. I recommend grabbing a lot of strength and dexterity on your amulet and your rare ring if possible. My strength is carried by my belt, and if you want to get a level 20 shield charge, you need 155 strength. Otherwise, it's not too bad to downgrade one level on shield charge and steel skin if you cannot find enough strength, but do get at least 100 for all other gems that require 98. You can later upgrade the weapon and amulet to +2 levels, but do check in PoE if it is an actual increase, if you lose in spell damage, crit chance or crit multi. You can press Ctrl C on an item and Ctrl V. You can press Ctrl C on an item and in PoE click Create Custom and Ctrl V to paste. So create the item here that you can add to build and then you can equip. You can also do the same on the trade site. Let's take a wand, whatever, any. If you click this plus here, copies the item, and then you can also paste it here. On your belt, you can grab a lot of Mind Throwing Speed, which comes from an Essence of Zeal. So you can try to craft it yourself. That's what I did with a T2 Fractured Max Life Heavy Belt. A Stygian Vise is also nice. Gets an extra Abyss Jewel. On the boots, do grab a T1 Suppress Spell Damage, and the rest is just movement speed, life, and res. For implicits, you can get 4% physical damage as extra cold as Eater Ward's implicit. And I grab a chance to avoid being shocked, because I run a Stormshroud Jewel, which makes the chance to avoid being shocked instead apply to all elemental elements, so ignite and heal and freeze. And you could find boots which also have, I think it is a suffix, which grants enough chance to avoid being shocked to be capped, just with your boots, but that becomes quite pricey. So for now I rolled one of my flasks with one chance to avoid being shocked, and this is basically 100% uptime while mapping. On your flasks, do grab chance to gain a flask charge when you deal crit. It works with the mines, and we crit a ton. We throw so many mines. And I'm a bit shy of 100%, so I'm running an Abyss Jewel with a chance to avoid being shocked. So it would be even nicer if I could grab a good Stygian Vise to put it in there. But best is just to get the best boost possible. And last but not least, on your chest, at high levels of investment, you want to grab +1 to Succeeded Strength gems. The Dexterity one is not necessary at all. This is a mod that comes from Delve, as you can see, it's called of the Underground, and preferably on the high evasion and energy shield armor. So this one could be a lot higher. On the higher end, you could find like 2500 evasion rating and more than 400 or 500 energy shield. You can roll these implicits. Hatred has increased the rare effect for Eater Worlds. That's a nice DPS boost. And Searing Exarch gain an endurance charge every 15 seconds, which is why after you roll this, you want to grab this Charge Mastery for 100% charge duration. By default, endurance charge is 10 seconds. So here it becomes 20 seconds, which is higher than the generation rate. And then we can cap our endurance charges like that. For the other Jewels, we have a Watcher's Eye. The best for damage is the Cold Pen while affected by Hatred. And I also run, as I said earlier, Spell Suppression while affected by Grace to help me cap it. It's really important to hit 100% chance to suppress spell. And last but not least is the Light of Meaning, which makes all the passives in its area grant 6% cold damage, so that's a big DPS boost. And a new thing I haven't talked about in the previous videos is we have a ton of extra int that's not very useful. So I replaced 13 of these by reduced effect of curses and grabbed Cobalt Jiwa with reduced effect on curses, so I have more than 100%. It allows me to run all those maps with the annoying curse mods, elemental weakness, temporal chains, etc. The corruption cannot be named is not necessary, but it's also nice. And Mind-Throwing Spin and Crit Multi for spell damage are the best you can find. Maximum life is also nice. So the build can run technically all mods with a flask swap. If you hit no regen of life and mana, then you need an enduring mana flask that you can use instead of your Taste of Hate temporarily. And with all the map modifier effects that you grab on juicy strats, the less recovery rate of life is pretty much the same effect. We do regenerate mana, so we don't need the flask swap. But for both of these mods, you're gonna need to spam your life flask while mapping, which can be quite annoying. And then the build is not crit immune, so that one, if you do not want to... So if you want to minimize your risk of dying, I don't recommend running that one. As well as the minus all maximum resistances one, because you get up to like minus 30 something %. That's pretty much for any build, not particularly this one, these are just repeat mods. For the Mercenary, I think technically the best we can find is a many shot with both Hatred and Grace, but I have not found one. I only found some with Val Grace, the regular Grace. So I prefer running a Mercenary with Zealotry. I found it on Shock and Busher and Fallen Ray Run. This one raises Spectres, so it adds a lot of noise on the screen. It does have an interesting Fallen Bishop that casts a lot of curses, but in the end I prefer a Shock and Busher, it's a bit nicer in terms of effect. It does run Skitterbots, but the increase in mind damage of Skitterbots does not apply as an aura, it's only for a person casting Skitterbots. But I think they do trigger my own mines from time to time, so it's a tiny DPS boost. The most important item is Karm's Binding. The enemies near the Mercenary convert 25% of the physical damage to fire, which will be protected by Primal Aegis, by the way. We can get Culling Strike gloves on Conqueror gloves, run an Anathema ring and a curse with enemies with Frostbite ring. You could use a Dredge, but often the Mercenaries have a conductivity, so they need actually a limit of 3, not of 2 curses. Anathema is better. And then on a weapon you can find Cold Exposure, so you do not need to run Frostbomb yourself. Oh, and Learcast Unique is also nice for 50% increased damage. So in the PoE I made 3 different loadouts. One to start early maps after you respec. One as a target to reach for like T16 on your first Voidstones. And then late game is basically my character. In early maps you want to grab the Golem nodes, Herald Reservation, life nodes on the way. You can temporarily grab these two. And then the Mine Wheels, the Elemental Wheel, the Max Frenzy Power Charge, and the Crit Wheel. Another important node is to pick those 3 because the calculation to determine if you freeze an enemy is based on the duration. It needs to hit a minimum cap of 0.3, I think. So increasing the freeze duration will allow us to freeze more easily. So for the skill gems, the main 6 link looks a bit weird, but that's just due to the Reap swap. To check your Exsanguinate DPS, make sure it's selected here and put 5 mines here for the mastery, and that chain support is enabled and hypothermia disabled. And when you want to check your Reap DPS, you swap chain for hypothermia and allow Reap, and then switch to Reap here and check that you have 5 mines active, and you will see your Reap DPS. This is with var Reap, so if you want to check your DPS with only the 5 normal Reap charges, enable Reap and disable var Reap. So yeah, you want a 4-link setup with Arcanist Brand, Assassin's Mark, and Frostbomb while your Mercenary doesn't have a Cold Exposure, and the var Reap. And then you have to find room for all your auras So Hatred, Skitterbolts where we don't run Grace, Herald of Purity, Herald of Ash. You should have a free link of Automation, Detonate Mines, and Steel Skin. Your shield charge and faster attacks, it's usually worthwhile to get a slot for Flame Dash too, or Frost Blink. And for the items, you don't need all of this to start with, just grab Rimsorrow Gloves and upgrade the rest when you can. Heatshiver is important, Circle of Guilt, quite important too. +1 Field Spell, Wand or Scepter and Shield. And the +1 amulet when you can. It's usually pretty cheap to craft the Mind Throwing Speed belt. And then to change the whole loadout, click on the top right, select another one. It will change both the item set, skill set, and tree. So for the tree, we grab the large and medium cluster G-Wolves, and we spec into this Burstorm side. You don't have to take the spell suppression until you have enough on your gear. And for the G-Wolves, you just grab Kobolds G-Wolves with Crit Multi and Mind Throwing Speed. Items are pretty much the same, but I did replace the Rimsorrow with a pair of gloves with a chain, some Fizz conversion, and Taste of Hate is also a nice addition in the flask. And the gems, there isn't much change. Do grab a 21 Corrupted Exsanguinate, and if you can, 21-20 Reap. And Power is also a really nice boost, if you can get it. Otherwise, run Hypothermia. And then in the late game setup, we get my actual items. For the skills, we grab an Enlighten level 3, you don't need a level 4, you can get one if you want, and then we replace Skitterbolts for Grace. And that concludes this guide. I'm not sure what build I'm cooking next yet. I do plan to release a video about farming strategies I've been running this league, and already made some shorts you might have seen. Thank you for liking the video, I appreciate if you drop a comment and subscribe as well. Have a nice one, and see you next time.